Collective is relevant today because in such unprecedented times and throughout history, women have always been on the forefront of leading, nurturing, and caring for not only their families, but their communities. In such precedented times as this, it is the perfect time for this organization and the Wonder Woman Collective. It's relevant. There's great need in our society and across the country, and so many various ways that it is now real and relevant for this organization to exist and to do the work that it does each day. I'm involved with the collective because I think now more than ever, women need to be supporting women. And the work that's done here at the Women's Resource Center is all about that. It's all about building up women, encouraging women, giving women the skills that they need to succeed in a time more than ever right now. I'm so excited that we are now having a Wonder Woman Collective where we can reach out to all of us with our different backgrounds and strengths and really be an inclusive source of support for the women in our community and the people in our community, really. Thrilled that we're putting this together and that we've opened it up broadly so that anyone can be a participant, whether you're a donor, whether you're a volunteer, a board member, a person in the community. This is something that can be there for all of us to reach out and get that incredible support that Women Helping Women always provides. I'm a part of the Wonder Women Collective because I truly do believe that we are all Wonder Women in our own right. On a daily basis, women are juggling so many priorities. We really take care of our families, our circle, and so many times we put ourselves last. This is an opportunity for each one of us to take a moment to sit, reflect, get the support that we all need to be successful in our daily challenges. I'm glad to be part of the Wonder Women's Collective because now more than ever, women need to be bold, raise their voices, and show the world what we're capable of. And we need to do it now.
Hello and welcome. Everybody can hear me okay? Yes? Good. Sometimes my computer audio likes to be a little tricky. So I didn't want to be talking for 5 minutes with you all saying, we can't hear you. My name is Ashley Brown and I'm the president and CEO of the Women's Resource Center. And I am so excited to have you join us at our second Wonder Women Collective event. And welcome Eleni Sokos and Alicia Cotton. I'm going to give those ladies a chance to introduce themselves in a minute, but I wanted to say thank you to all of our sponsors. Hopefully you got to see them on the slideshow that Ann Carter put together. And we just want to thank you and our sponsors for investing in women in our community. It's so important. And as the theme says, good things happen when women connect. So before I get into a little bit of the concept of what we're going to talk about today, I do want to encourage you to ask questions. You can use the chat feature or there's a Q&A box, and we're going to try to save some time at the end to answer questions. And I say try because talking to these two ladies, sometimes we get on a roll. So I don't know where the conversation is going to take us. So Eleni, you're on my left. So I am going to just invite you to introduce yourself for just a minute.
Thanks so much, Ashley. I am so pleased to be here and appreciative of you inviting me to present what I've learned over my years as a young professional in our community, both making professional connections and friends in this community. So I'm so thrilled to be speaking about that today and excited to get to know Alicia a little better.
Great. And so perfect entree into Alicia Cotton, who I've known for years. She was a former board president of the Women's Resource Center that has been it's going to be a lifelong friendship. It started a friendship more than 10 years ago. So welcome, Alicia.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and good evening, ladies, to my other panelists, the illustrious, intelligent, and beautiful Eleni. Thank you. I am delighted to share with you tonight my experiences over my long work career, 30 plus years here in Manatee County. As Ashley has mentioned, being a part of the Women's Resource Center has been both value added and beneficial. And I think tonight, as we share together in this space and on this Zoom room, I hope that you'll have a lot of great takeaways and a lot of fun in the process. So glad to be here. Thank you again, Ashley, and welcome everyone.
Terrific. So when we talk about networking, we actually, Deborah Chapman, who works with us at the center, is our Director of Strategic Collaborations. She has done some research, and we actually put an article together for NextGen on the importance of social capital. And what is social capital? And really, it's just a word to talk about relationships, whether it's personal relationship, work relationships, and that they're really counted as a tangible asset. So when you look at even some of the statistics you saw on the slideshow, how many people connect to jobs through networking, that is a tangible asset that we don't think about. And as we look at kind of the way of the world, people have become a little more disconnected. Certainly in the time of COVID, people have become a little more disconnected. And I think even the premise of starting this collective was last year, we had not only COVID and the pandemic to deal with, but we might have had some political divisiveness going on. I don't know if anyone noticed, but it seemed like our world was focused on all the ways that we were different. And we firmly believe that there are so many more ways in which we're alike and that we find common ground, but being able to talk to each other and understand each other's perspective and connect with one another is so very important. So part of the collective is this connection. So we thought our first event after the launch, it would be really good to talk about, why is networking important? How do you build your network if you don't have one? And then what are some ways that we've personally built our network, and kind of sharing tips and tricks. Are we going to share tips and tricks? I like it. It's kind of like a cause.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I want to start with, and I do know that Michael Perhidney, our board chair, is on watching and supporting us. But Michael, we're going to talk some specifics about building network with other women. So that's kind of where we're going to start off on. There is research that shows that building networks with other women and creating a space, a support system with other women is really beneficial in creating some vulnerability, some spaces to show, I think, struggle a little or ask for help. Being comfortable with needing other people is, you put yourself in a vulnerable space. So Alicia and Eleni, I'd just like your feedback on, do you find value in having a group of women as part of your support system network?
So shall I take this one first, Lenny? Sure. Awesome.
Please.
So I think, yes, to answer your question, I think there's great value in having a network of women to help support us as women. The one caution I do want to bring to the table, though, is that should not be our only networking opportunity. There should be several other circles or groups or modes of networking. But I find a lot of value in networking among with women or between the women. So much so that I started a sister circle within my own workplace to help women navigate those questions that come up from time to time. How do you make your voice heard in a room full of men, or how do you navigate a particular circumstance or situation? So yes, I do find value in that.
Yeah, of course, I will agree. I think as a phrase professionally, the term like networking group can get a little bit of a bad rap because often these are perceived as like maybe salesy a little bit like disingenuous. And I think you have to kind of look at it as just finding your people who are there to support you, whether it's through life's transitions or, on the professional side, when you're looking for a recommendation or referral, having a group of women that you can really trust is the key. Because I think, Ashley, you hit on it on an important point with being vulnerable and expressing vulnerability. It takes a certain level of trust to cut through that barrier that we tend to naturally put up between ourselves and other women in particular. I think as young women, whether we're groomed this way or the societal influences, but there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of competition, and we are taught more often than not to view another woman as a threat. So cutting through some of that noise to establish trust, connection, and goodwill is super important. And that's actually what I would say to your first point, Ashley, build social capital. Like I coach our clients at our marketing agency a little bit on customer service, where not everyone is going to jump to write a 5-star review, but if you give a 1-star experience, you'll get that Google review. It can take thousands and thousands of positive interactions with someone to build that social capital, but just one to lose it. So it's all just about finding your people who are receptive to the warmth and the genuineness and authenticity that you bring to socializing, to networking, or to just becoming friends with someone.
Well, and Eleni, you said something when we were meeting to kind of talk through what we wanted to talk about today, that it's a phrase that stuck with me, especially for women that I think sometimes we're set up to be competitors. And really, there's so much more value in, I think it was companionship over competitiveness, or I can't, just that phrase was perfect.
Exactly. It's starting off with, a compliment to someone, like a genuine compliment. I really like your nails, who does your nails? And then that leads to a recommendation for a service maybe. And then maybe that opens the door to that trust that person might ask you what you do, and you can have an opportunity to refer your business. The quote you mentioned, if you will, that concept of compliments and companionship before competition comes to me from a friend who initially may have been perceived as a competitor in business as well, but we ended up being super close friends, and now we collaborate on projects all the time. But that's because she reached out to me and kind of gave me a compliment that sparked a friendship. So I'm grateful for that. And she's here too, so hi, Brittany.
Which is good, yes. And anybody who would like to give me compliments, feel free in the chat. I'm totally okay with that. No, but that kind of leads to a natural question on, again, the data showing how many people find the value in networking or the value in connecting. But I think it was 85%, but only 35 to 40% found that they had the time. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, Alicia, you were growing up, raising kids, working at Tropicana. How did you find the time to build your network? I think that's a real issue for people.
I agree, Ashley, and it's certainly a challenge for us as women, right? As the caretakers of family and husbands and parents, and ensuring everything's right for others. So what I have found successful as a planner, I tend to be a planner, was planning the time, but realizing everybody isn't a planner. So to be more spontaneous, right? And spontaneous about getting that on your calendar, what you have to do, I call it, you have to self-invest. You have to know that you are enough of a priority, because your success is really your family's success and those that you love and those that you touch in your community. So first and foremost, we have to recognize and prioritize and make a commitment to self-invest. Whether you're a planner and you put 15 minutes on your calendar once a week or twice a week to connect, or if something triggers you during the course of the day and you thought about something and you said, that reminds me of a person that's a part of my network, so I'm just going to drop a quick text message or an email or just whatever form of communication that's comfortable. If it's more of a phone call, and it doesn't have to be long and it doesn't have to be drawn out. So you have to pivot to your comfort, your level of comfort, what works for you. I found it best to just really take a little bit of time, not having a lot, and making it an important and putting it on my calendar and saying, this is my 15 minutes today that I'm going to reach out and just say hi, or how can I help you? What's going on in your world with any of my networks?
That's great advice. And
Yeah,
Eleni, what
I
about
think
you?
for those of us, like all, like you said, Alicia, all women, we're busy, whether we're juggling families or work responsibilities or whatever it is. I heard something today that I knew would come up in this conversation, which is that a goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you don't have a goal and a plan for achieving, whatever it is that you're going to invest your time in, you're probably wasting that time. So whether you're showing up to a networking event without maybe some key contacts that you'd like to leave with their business cards, maybe one coffee date that you decide to set up next week, like whatever those strategic objectives are for you, if you're going to look for that output, you're more likely to show up. It's just like when I register for a yoga class, like a week in advance, I'm way less likely to blow it off and actually show up to that. So you've got to really make that commitment to yourself, but it can be easy. I loved Alicia's point about just sending a text message. I try to send 3 texts a day to like friends and family members, and even just include in there, listen, I know you're really busy. I don't expect you to write back, but I just wanted you to know I'm thinking of you, and I hope your Thursday is really great. So just super easy way to stay in touch with some friends.
I totally agree. And we have to, again, just self-invest and prioritize the time, make it important to Eleni's point that, you have to just simply do it.
Well, and I think we all feel better when we do. I have a group of women that I have dinner with, and we all come from different career backgrounds, and it's just we find such value in support in talking to each other and sharing something that may be going on with me that they have a completely different perspective on too. And even if it's busy and there's all of those things, I always find that at the end of the dinner, and I've enjoyed that time so much, and the value that I get from their friendship, and as time's gone on, it's so worth it. So I think that that's a good point too, to remember how much we value it when we make the time to really invest in other people too.
Yes.
Which is important. And I would like to say thank you. I was joking, but I do like compliments. So I appreciate Chief Bevan and Tracy Vanderneck. I appreciate you. Were you all surprised at the number of jobs that are gained through networking? Like 85, I think that was 85%.
I was not surprised. You want me to
No.
elaborate? I was
Yeah.
not surprised, right? Hard work is definitely important, and getting the results that we all want as we go to work is important. But what I have learned over the years that gentlemen, guys tend to do a lot better is they really unplug and they connect with each other, and they have conversations and they get to know each other very well. I think we as women, we tend to say, okay, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to get it done. Unplugging and connecting offline of work allows people to see you more than just your work, which is one dimension of who you are. And when they get to know you and they have those conversations offline of work and they're connecting with you, when things come up and opportunities present themselves, that's already a seed planted in their mind. I think women, as women, that's something we definitely have to do better. And I'm glad that this collective is talking about the importance of networking and spending that time, because it's not just always the work you do, but it's the person that probably has the opportunity to extend the job to you or extend the business to you, or be privy to what you're doing, so that when they and their network is talking about it, then your name comes up in the conversation. And I think that's important for us as women to understand, not just the hard work, but the networking is going to be critical to your success and the goals that you want to achieve. Where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain aspect of that any marketer or advertiser would tell you. It's at some point, it's about impressions and being top of mind and top of tongue when you're looking for referrals, whether it's for a job or for a service. Just putting yourself out there is so important, but it can be exhausting, especially in our community that loves events, whether they're virtual or in person. I mean, you could fill up every hour of every day with a different event or networking group. So for me, it's been about filtering out, figuring out, what organizations really align with my personality in one way, not just my career goals, but what event format is best for me. Is it something that's a little more structured, or is it more casual? That's been really helpful. But Ashley, I think to your comments about your group of friends that you have dinner with, and I think there's an idea that as women, we kind of run on like those like E on the gas tank a little bit. Like, I know my car's constantly at a quarter tank of gas, but I find that when I am able to, whether it's connect with someone intentionally over coffee, or just monthly gatherings with a book club that I recently created with some friends and has provided me with so much value. I feel like I'm at my best self during those moments. I feel like I'm, especially in a virtual world, like just having human connection is so important. If I've been working from home too many days in a row, I start to have really long conversations with the dog. And getting out and having some networking experience helps, keep us a little bit more real, a little approachable. And I think if you're strategic with your time, as we're looking at, digital lives, like even just on Zoom meetings, put yourself in the chat comment, in the chat box, like say something, because everyone here on this conversation is going to see your name pop up. And that's just another impression that you're giving your potential target audience. So
I like what you said, Eleni, there, and that we have to also consider being strategic and what works for us. Not every event, not every platform, you're going to feel comfortable with that. So I just want to segue on that a little bit. I've gotten very comfortable with the Zoom platform, and I encourage others, if they are, to get creative. There are so many fun things that you can do to stay connected using the Zoom platform. I never would have thought that a paint and sip on Zoom would be fun, but it was. And it allowed for that impression that you're talking about, Eleni, for people just to connect and recharge, because as women, we need to do that. So great point. Be strategic in it. Try to find what works best for you.
Terrific. In paint and sip, Alicia, I think we'd all like to see the end product of whatever that might have been. Just saying, if it works into the screen at any point, we'd appreciate it. So I'm going to switch tactics a little. Diversity in your network. I touched on it a bit with some of the women that I have dinner with. We're all from different job sectors. And when we talk about diversity, I think people tend to be very linear of it's just ethnic diversity. But the reality is it's socioeconomic diversity, it's ethnicity, it's job sector, it's all of those things that I find it so valuable to have the right people and the different people at my table to not just hear what's in my head. I don't want people who just are going to agree with everything I say, or an echo chamber and be like, yep, I feel the same exact way. So let's talk a little bit about why is it important to cultivate a diverse group of voices in your network and your support system. And Eleni, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. Thank you. In my opinion, perspective is the biggest and greatest output of having diverse influences in my life. I see it all the time with, as you mentioned at the onset of this conversation, things are really polarized right now. Everyone apparently needs to have an opinion about everything and then post it on social media. And that can be really hard to understand, what's true, what's not, what I believe in, what aligns with me. So wisdom and knowledge that helps you navigate situations can only be gained by having really diverse influences. It reminds us that, everybody's journey is a little bit different. Every situation affects everyone differently. And, I help to understand a little bit more like where other people are coming from. Again, it goes back to trust. Even if I don't agree with someone's opinions, I trust that person enough to know that I can have a mature, logical, rational conversation that will help me understand why they think that way. Whether or not I agree with them is different, but it's got to be that perspective. To me, also age, diversity of age in my kind of like my bench is really important. I love, I have friends that are my age, young professionals, but I have some of the people closest to me who give me the best advice are in their 50s and 60s. So
Uh-oh. Eleni, you went away for a quick second, and that might have been your nugget right there at the end. Alicia, can you talk for me?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
So,
cool.
Eleni, oh yeah, I can start. What came to mind when you asked that question was this, and I remember a quote from Lionel Richie. I don't know where I heard this quote, but I recall the quote. Everything I thought at 27 was right was wrong. I think diversity in your network changes some of the thinking that you think is right to maybe not so right. How often have we thought, oh, I'm certain about this, only to find out that we were wrong? I think diversity brings that to the table. It challenges your thinking. It challenges what you thought was status quo and correct. It gives you a different perspective. You do yourself a disservice when you want to be one dimensional. We're not one dimensional people. We are multifaceted. And as women, we evolve over time. The woman at 20 is different than the woman at 40. And thank God for that, right? And at 60, because the evolution is a beautiful thing. And so I think with diversity, you get diverse thought, you get diverse perspectives, you get diverse ways of doing things. They drive on a different side in the UK, but it's not wrong. So how's that feel? How's that look, right? You don't know until that's brought into your network and into your circle, because you're kind of linear until someone says, you might want to take a right turn here. So two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Diversity makes that difference, ladies, for sure.
Alicia, give us that quote one more time. I really liked it. All the things when I was 27.
So Lionel Richie said, all the things I thought I knew at 27 was wrong. So that was his quote.
Yeah.
And it was just a light bulb for me, right? Because as I've grown and matured and had more experiences, a lot of the things that I thought was right was wrong. And I think diversity in your network changes the way you think, because
Absolutely.
it brings a different perspective, and then it opens your world up to so much. So, yeah.
And
Eleni, how are you back with us?
I am. I think my audio dropped out for just a second, but yeah, I love that Lionel Richie quote, Alicia. It reminds me of this idea that I heard recently that is I think it's called the curse of knowledge, where you don't know what you don't know, and that your knowledge base is only as broad as the influences that are within that sector. So it comes to an example, women who are going through transition, whether they're leaving like high school and starting a career, or college and starting a career, it's important to get financial advice and career advice from people besides just your parents, because if you only have your parents' advice financially, you may never exceed the socioeconomic bracket that they placed you in. And I'm not a parent, but from what I understand, every parent's goal is to really better their children. So why not seek those diverse influences and look outside of the people that you're comfortable with? Look outside that comfort zone. But when you're looking at who do I invite into my life? Who do I ask to be on my board of directors? I think it's, you kind of have to realize what type of roles, and Ashley, you described as voices, what type of voices do you need to be hearing? Because sometimes it's not always just the voices you want to be hearing. It's easy for us to only include and reach out to people for advice that we know are going to agree with us. So I know that I need someone to call me on my what sometimes. I know that I do need some cheerleaders in my corner, because I can sometimes feel a little anxious and insecure. And I know people that I need when I need to have a little fun and like let my hair down a little bit. Then it's important to just get that diversity of influence in your life too.
You touched on board of directors, and it was actually one of our Wonder Women panelists in October that used the term. It was Lisa Krause, and talked about creating your own personal board of directors. So at the Women's Resource Center, we have a board of directors that provide leadership and thought leadership. And when we talk about thought leadership, I think it's so important to have people that you can have big conversations with and do visioning and all of those things. And I loved when she talked about a personal board of directors, that kind of you have those people that are invested in you and what you're doing, just as you're invested in them. So part of that is going back again to a little bit of the vulnerability. One, how do you all recruit people to be part of your network or your personal board of directors? And that certainly again goes back to that vulnerability piece.
So when I think of a board of directors, right, board of directors usually take companies from being good to great, and great to exceptional, and exceptional to one of a kind, right? So where do you want to go? I think you should leverage first and foremost your natural connections to help guide you in who should be your board of directors or who should be a part of that. I think a board of directors person should be almost independent of maybe your personal network and your professional network, to really bring in that additional perspective for you. That's a little bit challenging in terms of who should be on there, but I would first and foremost leverage my natural connections, right? So this person knows this person, and I'm interested in opening a restaurant or starting a kids gym or whatever your goal or whatever you're trying to accomplish, and say, hey, do you know someone? I'm interested in really surrounding myself with people so that I can achieve this particular goal. So I'm looking for someone that's good at finance, and I don't have anyone in my network currently. So you can do that. I think if you get out and you start going to various places and participating, and I think Eleni talked about that earlier, engaging and volunteer and other activities, it will lend itself to the right person crossing your path. I think there's a lot of destiny in our lives that we don't always take advantage of, being at the right place at the right time for things to happen. But you got to be in the right place.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's true. And sometimes I think, especially, as a young woman looking to advance, or for anyone, you have to ask for what you want. And first of all, that's a hard lesson to learn professionally, that people aren't just waiting around to figure out, how can I help Eleni today? Which I wish they were. Please call me. I have a lot of ideas to talk about. But everyone's so busy. We're spread so thin. We've been talking about all the obligations we juggle. If you're looking for someone who can really help you, that's going to take a time commitment on their part too. And you have to really ask for it, and you have to deserve it. I love when people call me and say, hey, can I pick your brain? Let's go to coffee or whatever. But sometimes just a networking tip in general, I appreciate when people come to ask me for advice or questions and they have like 3 questions that they can even send me in advance that I can prepare on. That's really helpful for someone who's busy. If you're looking to make a connection with someone, maybe to be a mentor or a director on your board, you might have to say, hey, I'm dealing with a scenario that's new to me. I'm wondering if you can have any suggestions. If you have any suggestions for how I might approach this decision, can I take 20 minutes of your time? And if you ask for something that seems really like low entry level, they're more likely to give you more of their time. You're being more direct and cutting to the chase a little bit quicker. That's going to get you results faster. It's people ask all the time, like, where do you meet people? We've talked about networking groups. I'm sure we'll go into this here in a little bit, but going back to what I said earlier about compliments before competition, like sometimes you just have to swallow your pride, bite the bullet, and reach out to someone and say, try to make a genuine connection. I like to talk a lot about personal branding. I think that's important to women as we tell our own stories in our personal lives and careers. So maybe it's the same icebreaker question that you always ask. Like I love restaurants. So I might say, what's the best local restaurant you've tried recently? Something that's going to be a little more memorable than just like, hi, how are you? It's rainy outside, or, commenting on the weather, or what do you do for work, can just be super basic. So getting as directly to the point as you can, making an impact and leaving an impression will always get you the right influences.
If I could tag on to that, we have not because we ask not, right? And I think you're so on point, Lenny. We just have to ask, and how we position the ask. And if we come to the table also wanting to give as well as receive, I think that's just mutually beneficial. You can't lose there.
I know, I like that, Alicia. Something we talk about a lot is you can't get a no if you don't ask. So even a no. So there's nothing to lose sometimes by asking. One of the things that you two also have in common is you grew up in this area, and a lot of people in our region move back here, understandably. I mean, it's a wonderful place to live. How do you find that having a network of people who have known you since you were even in high school or 27, which I'm not going to go into details, but there might have been some things I was doing in my 20s that I'm not all that proud of when I'm now in my mid 40s or 50s.
We'll go with that.
Early 40s. So just touch a little bit on how do you do you have anything that maybe it's not an issue, maybe it's something that I think is, but have you had anything with growing up here that you've had to address or just transition?
I don't know that I've had anything I've necessarily needed to like address. I tried to be an upstanding young citizen of our community as a teenager. And that has served me well, because I will always cite this as one of the biggest, the luckiest breaks I've had as a young adult, is that I was born into a family that believes in the power of giving back, that has owned businesses in our community for a long time, and that really taught me how to represent myself professionally and personally. And that was very well known. I'm lucky for that people were able to trust my last name because of the brand that had been associated. In my case, I chose to go out on my own and do something completely different than our family business. And honestly, I think until recently, my family, and maybe they still think I just play on Facebook all day. Like they don't really even know what I do. But my first clients were family friends and friends of friends, or friends of former coworkers, or people I'd interacted with through nonprofits and volunteerism. So that was my first client base. And 7 years later, we still don't really outwardly market our company. We're almost 100% referral based. So professionally, that's a direct result of the power of my network. people trust our company's experience through our portfolio and the testimonials from people whose opinions they value and trust. But it's for me one of the most valuable assets I'm very lucky to have, and I choose to serve it well. So I hope that growing up here has always been a strength for me.
I would agree. I think it's wonderful for example, to run into your fourth grade teacher and say, I'm trying to start a tutoring program. And I think you'd be great to do that. Or, it just gives you a really good foundation in which to build upon, right? They know your strengths, they know your weaknesses. To Eleni's point, they know the brand, they know who you are. You've built that trust, that such important foundation to building good relationships, right? So it takes a lot of the work away because the history and the experiences have already the groundwork has been laid for you to then connect. And they also know your opportunity areas, I'll call them, so they can help you navigate away from things that might not be in your best interest, as they know your goals and they know what successes that you've had, and they know where what you're trying to achieve. So I think it just adds to what we're able to do as women.
Which is good. So for those of you keeping score, Eleni and Alicia, well behaved throughout their life. Me, maybe not so much. And I have to apologize. Ann Carter's going to get me a ring light because the sun is coming in through my window, and no matter how I move, it's kind of half on my face. So we're just going to have to go with it, ladies. It's just what it is.
You look great either way.
I was going to say, as ladies, we always know how to pivot. We make it work.
Alicia, you hit the nail on the head with adaptability has certainly been something that we've done this year, but being able to adapt and flow is always good. So I do want to save some time for question and answer from people. We have a couple of questions that I've seen, but I want to do one more question before we get to that. Sorry, Annie Novotny. We have two Annies going. What I always like to tell the story of how I got engaged with the Women's Resource Center, because it goes to this thought of networking and connecting. I moved to this area with a job. I was recruited, didn't have kids. So if you think of the traditional ways that you connect, it's typically your kids are in school, so you're meeting other parents, your work. I worked in manufacturing before I was with the Women's Resource Center. So essentially I worked with about 200 middle-aged men, which were wonderful guys, but not people that were going to be part of my friend network. And I was encouraged to volunteer. And I used to drive by the Women's Resource Center, and I thought, I don't know really what it is, but it sounds good. So I made a call and started volunteering, and one thing led to another, and I went on an event committee, and Jamie Carter was the chair of the event committee, and we were like, we are going to be friends. And so it really was, that was my first friend that then built to Manatee County and then this region becoming home. So it really is, you never know where the reaching out and connecting people is going to take you. So that was just kind of one of my stories. And I would love to hear one from Eleni and Alicia of something where you decided, you know what, I'm just going to do this and see what happens.
I'd like to tie it back to the Women's Resource, right? Event. This
is not planned. I like it.
So at my employment, right, at my employer, we were having a women's network event. I reached out to, at that point, the community relations person, and I said, we want to do something for women in the community. And she says, I have the perfect place for you. the Women's Resource Center. So that was my first introduction. We decided to have a purse and shoe drive for the store at the time. It wasn't the Unique Boutique, but it was something else. But anyway, that's where I got afforded the great opportunity, reached out, asked them, invited them over to corporate headquarters. They came over, we had a wonderful time. That's where I met Ashley Brown. And so from there, my world opened up to community service more than I had been doing currently at that particular time. And I haven't looked back from that point on. So that connection, Ashley came over as the Women's Resource Center director, met with us. We had a wonderful drive. We connected. We agreed to connect again, and this wasn't going to be our last connect. Ashley reached out, and here I am today, 10, 12 years later, and I get the wonderful opportunity to continue to serve the community by that connect. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that is great. And it was Restyled Rags, Alicia.
That's right.
We thought it was a super clever name, Rags.
I see Becky's comment. Yes. So that led to this, and I think that those are natural connections that will happen if we just see them as opportunities for us to give, and then you also receive, not that that was your intent, but it just gives back naturally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have countless examples of how that's paid off. You know, how contributions and has paid off for me personally in terms of relationships gained. I also have a similar story of service to the center. Ashley reminded me something I completely forgotten, that even back in college, I was helping the center with some small grant writing opportunities, like way back when, I don't want to talk about how many years ago, but it turned into the opportunity to work with the center as a contractor and help navigate the brand merger of the Manatee and Sarasota centers. That was really transformational for the organization back in, was it 2017?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that all was really just because of personal connections that that opportunity opened up. And that's just one page in a long book I could write about whether we've served on myself or someone on my team has served on like an event committee, donated time to various nonprofits, offered marketing services. It always comes back around. That's not why we do it, for sure. Like Alicia said, it's not the point, but it's a good thing. And I think it's building good social capital. Like we talked about at the beginning, it builds good karma, and it just makes you feel good. So whether you actually have some benefit that comes out of it, you'll just get a great feeling by showing up, giving back, and making some new friends.
Absolutely. All right, great. So Annie Novotny, we're going to open it to you with, I saw a couple of questions, but I'm going to let you drive that boat.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, ladies. This was a wonderful conversation, and I'm going to move over to the Q&A box. Let's see, the first question I have here is, can you recommend any local organizations to join that can help me make good professional connections?
Eleni, do you want to take that one first?
I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Yes, you're connected.
I love the chambers of commerce, the professional networking groups. Manatee Chamber, I love, is my home for networking. Manatee Young Professionals has been great to me. I know there are some female networking groups that people find a lot of benefit from. I think SWAT is one that comes to mind, the Successful Women Aligning Together. Locally, I really do believe that volunteering is a great way to start, just to find interest-based hobbies. And I know, it's not local, but social media has really brought us all together in 2020 and today. So looking at, what are the types of interests I have, the influencers I follow, whether that's for personal or professional development, getting involved in the comment section seems silly, feels intimidating, but you just might make a real relationship from that. So.
Awesome. I would just segue and tag on to what Eleni has said as well. I think the volunteer opportunity is just full. It's rich of of great things that you can do and connect, right? There are special interests. There's the Women's Resource Center. There are youth components. There are senior components. There are specific maybe to a sport component, but there's just so many rich ways to do it. The chamber, as Eleni has already mentioned, has a great wealth of information. They don't read the paper anymore, but online you can look at what's happening in your community that particular week. It might be spark something of interest to you that you can get involved with. But I love the fact that the person wants to get involved. So that's the first major step.
Absolutely. And I would add, the young professional groups are great, or any of the networking events, that whether it's the Venice Chamber, the Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, Manatee Chamber, service clubs, junior leagues, the service club. And it's so important to know what works for one person doesn't work for all. So just try them. And if you don't like it, it's okay. Like if it's not your cup of tea, that's okay. So I think sometimes people put pressure on themselves of, I've got to do this, this, and this. But, find where you're comfortable and where you find value in your time, and that you find that connection with the people. So it's okay to be like, I'm going to try this, and this really wasn't for me. So,
yes.
Great advice. Yes. Our next question here is, what tips do you have to break down barriers in creating diversity?
I would say the first barrier is self. Remove some of the fears and some of the thinking that you have about what is the barrier, because it really just may be your mindset that's creating the barrier. I know that I found that true to be for myself, right? So where I thought was a real barrier, or I thought, I made some assumptions. When I removed those and tried to look at it from a different perspective, and I jumped into some things, or walked in, or casually kind of peeked my head in, I found that they were a great experience. And so I say the first thing is self barriers. Remove the self barriers. Ask the questions of people in your network to gain information. It's up. People are willing to help. I found that more often than not. Not everybody, but I found it to be true. And so if you have a concern about how to engage, or if you want to engage in a certain group, or you want to do be a part of a certain organization, ask around, find out about it, get the information on it. And I think you'll wind up finding it's probably not all what we thought it was going to be that was going to be a barrier for us.
The only thing meaningful, I think Alicia nailed it, but for me, it's hard to get out of my own way sometimes and get out of my own head. And I think 90% of our barriers to success are self-created obstacles. And that's where I'll give a shout out to the WRC, because I, through the Women's Resource Center, I was able to find a mental health counselor on an affordable basis that helped me kind of set aside some of my anxieties, insecurities, and help me navigate my best path to becoming my best self. So shameless plug for WRC. So I know Ashley will forgive me.
I know, I hate a shameless plug. I love a shameless plug. The only thing I'm going to add is to both of you all is listening. I think sometimes, especially if we're nervous, we go on send, and it's so taking the time to listen and reflect, and not be contemplating your response and your answer, because I think that breaking down those barriers to building a diverse group of people, you're reaching out and connecting with people who aren't in your circle. So that kind of, you're in a state that you might be a little uncomfortable, but I thought Eleni hit it, of have a list of kind of 3 questions that are comfortable for you to start a conversation with someone, so you don't feel awkward, and then actually take the time to listen listen with intention. And I think that helps a lot. And I want to point out too, hello, Felice, I just saw your response on, it is important if volunteering is something that's interesting to you, finding something that just speaks to your heart. If it's women, there's so many great things. If it's animals, but finding something that speaks to you. Okay, Annie, and we have one more question.
Yes, we have one more question. The last question that I have here is, what is your go-to tactic for networking virtually in these interesting times? Do you prefer email, LinkedIn, or something else?
That's a very good question. I have kind of lend it towards Zoom and trying to go to as many Zoom events that I have line of sight to and visibility to kind of broaden and stay connected into my network. I've created some of my own that I've wanted to invite people to and encourage them to invite others that I don't necessarily know directly, but might benefit from that. So I've used the Zoom platform a lot. In terms of trying to stay connected and trying to make those great connects happen for me and for others that I know.
Yeah, I think if you are meeting virtually, it's difficult to connect with people. It's a lot easier for people to get benefit out of a Zoom event or a webinar if they know all the other participants. If you don't know the participants, you're less likely to just jump into a conversation. You might not see a friendly face and you'll feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I think, again, you have to set a little bit of that ego and fear aside and say, I really like what that person had to say. I am going to follow up with them. The best way to do that for me is email, because it's an action step for me, like in my inbox. We're used to it as professionals. LinkedIn can feel a little bit intimidating, or I don't know, maybe a little opportunistic to me. It is like a job seekers platform. But I just find that my professional relationships are more meaningful through even Instagram. 20 somethings and 30 somethings are used to communicating through Instagram. So just go with whatever's most accessible to you, and don't be afraid to follow up too. If the email maybe got lost in spam folder, say something, like send a second if it's been a week or so, and say, hey, I really liked what you had to say. And ask, again, going back to my earlier point, ask a direct question and you'll get a direct answer, hopefully. Come in with those goals. What is the ask that you're putting in front of someone? And if you are as specific and as focused on your goals, then that person will be more likely to help you achieve them.
Awesome.
Yeah. And my tip on this, and some of my friends and staff, I will feel you roll your eyes. I love an informational interview. People are so willing to connect and share. So whether I usually do email, because I think it's an easier way to give people space to respond, of just asking people for 30 minutes of their time. So you set a specific time so people aren't afraid to say yes, because sometimes if it's open-ended, that can be uncomfortable for people. But if it's I'm interested in what you do, or I'm interested in your perspective, or would you be willing to give me 30 minutes of your time, people are really likely to say yes, because we do live in a region that people care and are committed to making this region better for the people that live here. So that's kind of my go-to. And I take all the eye rolls from it. So it's okay. I can't believe we're T-minus 1 minute. And I so want to thank Alicia and Eleni for giving your time and sharing with us today. So many valuable tidbits. We really appreciate you being here with us. And I want to thank again our sponsors. BMO Harris is our presenting sponsor of the Wonder Women Collective. And the Wonder Women Collective is going to continue to work on ways that we can connect and engage women. So something that we're working on that we're really excited about is creating a directory, both through Facebook group as well as an online directory, as a way for us to connect with each other. So if you are looking for someone to ask questions to, if you're looking to hire a woman-owned business, if you are looking for an informational interview, just a really easy way to connect. And I want to throw out a first opportunity. So if anybody knows of anyone, someone reached out to us that they were looking specifically for a female that had experience as a high-level coder that could create custom code. We don't have anybody within our group right now, but if anybody listening here or watching later has that experience or knows someone with that experience, please reach out to us at the center and we'll get you connected. But we're really excited about where that's going to go. And we hope that you stay engaged and connected with us as this collective grows and we support each other as women in this region. Again, Alicia, Eleni, any last words before we close out?
I had a wonderful time sharing in this conversation, and I have a new friend, Eleni, a new contact in my network. I'm very happy to have met her. And thank you to the tech team for a great job. And Ashley, as usual, outstanding. I had a great time tonight. I hope it's been helpful for all on the line.
Thank you so much. I know Annie and Annie have worked really hard on this behind the scenes, and it is appreciated by me. And I know all of us. There's been so much great dialogue. I don't know that everyone can see it, but there's a lot of nice comments coming into the chat feature. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing everyone at the next collective event.
Terrific. And we are going to follow up with you with some tangible information, tips, and tricks from both Alicia and Eleni that will recap some of what they shared today, as well as other things. We also have our Wonder Women Collective swag, and there will be a link where you can buy t-shirts, which this is the Good Things Happen When Women Connect. But I feel like we had a couple of quotes come out of today that we might see at a t-shirt shop near you. So again, thank you to all our sponsors and thank you to everybody that tuned in and gave your time today to participate. We look forward to seeing you at the next Wonder Women Collective.
Awesome. Good night, ladies. Take care.